evening, everyone, and welcome to the Beaverton Voters Forum for the general election on November 6th. My name is Bob Waite, retired communications director for the Tualatin Hills Park and Recreation District, and it is my pleasure to serve as your moderator. Tonight's forum is co-sponsored by the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement, BCCI, and the City of Beaverton. BCCI is an advisory committee to the Beaverton City Council and sponsors educational activities designed to promote public participation in Beaverton city government. Since its inception, BCCI has been active in public involvement issues, especially those related to land use. A special thank you to the Beaverton School District for providing the space for tonight's event and for encouraging students and teachers to attend. This event is being recorded for broadcast and will be shown on Tualatin Valley Community Television, Channel 28, several times before the November 6th election. For those watching live, it is also on the City of Beaverton's Facebook page. For those in our live audience here in the room, you will be able to submit questions to the candidates using the yellow question card in your information packet. We also collected some questions online prior to tonight. Questions will be brought to me, and when one applies to a particular race, all candidates in that race will be given the opportunity to respond. Due to time constraints, we are limited to how many questions we can ask. If your question is not asked, we encourage you to contact the candidates directly after the forum. Their contact information is in your information packet. The order in which the candidates will give their opening and closing statements is based on a drawing by members of BCCI. Finally, we do have timekeepers sitting at the desk in front of the candidates. They have a stopwatch and a sign that they will hold up to let the candidates know how much time is remaining to speak. I will stop a candidate only if necessary, just to keep us on schedule. So now let's get started. The first race we'll feature is for District 27 in the State House of Representatives. Two candidates are here, as you see, Representative Sherry Malmstrom, the incumbent, and Brian Pearson, her opponent. Please note that Katie Brumbelow is also running for this office, but was unable to attend tonight. Sherry Malmstrom, a Democrat, was elected to this House seat in 2016. She is married and has 3 adult sons. A lifelong resident of Washington County, she graduated from Sunset High School and went on to earn a nursing degree from Oregon Health Sciences University. With more than 30 years of public health nursing experience, she focuses on issues that will help support families and build a healthier Oregon. In the legislature, Representative Malmstrom is a member of the House Health Care Committee, the House Committee on Early Childhood and Family Supports, and the Joint Ways and Means Human Services Committee. She is also the legislative liaison to the Oregon Commission for Women, a gubernatorial appointment. Brian Pearson, an independent party candidate, was appointed to the United States Military Academy at West Point and served more than 10 years as an Army officer in the Corps of Engineers. His first assignment was to Fort Lewis, Washington, where he was introduced to the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. After his military service, Brian looked to find companies that make a difference in people's lives. He was a senior vice president for FEI in Hillsborough and chief operating officer of HireRight, the world's largest background screening company. His record also includes experience as vice president and general manager of Erickson Aviation. He says he would be a truly independent voice in state government. Now it's time for the candidates to provide their opening statement. Each of them has a minute and a half, 90 seconds. We'll go in the following order, which again was based on the BCCI drawing. So Representative Malmstrom, you are first. 90 seconds, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Sherry Malmstrom, and I represent Oregon House District 27, which includes communities in Beaverton, Garden Home, Raleigh Hills. I want to thank you all for inviting me to have this opportunity to serve on this panel here and give a chance to answer questions. And I have enjoyed being your state representative. It has truly been my honor. Over the past couple of years, I've worked with Governor Kate Brown and my colleagues in the House and Senate on what has been the focus of my entire career, improving the outcomes of health for families in Oregon. I spent my career working in healthcare as a public health nurse, providing support for very vulnerable people, mostly mothers and their children. And at the Oregon Legislature, I put my experience to work and I'm proud to have been able to fight to support 3 major healthcare policies: Cover All Kids, which provides health coverage to every child in Oregon, regardless of their citizenship status; the Reproductive Health Equity Act, which enshrines a woman's right to choose and access to a range of family planning care in Oregon statute; and funding for our Medicaid expansion, protecting coverage of 350,000 Oregonians. I'm proud of the work that I was able to contribute to in my first term in the legislature. If I earn your support again, I promise to fight for a minimum of these 3 things: the Clean Energy Jobs Bill to get Oregonians to work on building a clean energy economy; paid family medical leave so new moms can get time to heal and all parents can have time to bond with their baby or care for an ill family member; and continue to work on combating the opioid crisis, including establishing a safe drug disposal programs to get unused and unwanted medications out of our medicine cabinets.
Brian, you're next.
Great. Thank you, Bob, and thank you to the BCCI and to the community for such a great attendance tonight. For me, I'm running because I believe Oregon need representatives that focus on our people, not on our party. Representing community, not necessarily special interests. When I looked at this, we really need to focus on creating the legislation, as Sherry has said, that benefits all Oregonians. But I'm taking a different approach, and the different approach is looking at from principles, not a platform, not trying to create things that divide us, but create things that can connect us and unify us. First, complete care of our families, education, social services, making sure that we have jobs and the transportation infrastructure we need. But most importantly, operate with mutual trust and respect. It's something that we all have seen has been challenged in politics of late, but I'd really like to say that's why I want to be able to serve you, to bring that back to Salem. Be fiscally responsible, making sure we make decisions that treat every bit we have of finances as our own, making the compromises, working together, crossing the aisle to be successful, and using my experience, both as a businessman, a military officer, to be able to read, listen, and understand the large challenges we have at the state. $180 billion budget, bringing it all together, bringing consensus to make sure we can be successful, proud to be Oregonians, and being able to do it in a bipartisan manner. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you both for those opening statements. Now for the fun part, the Q&A portion of the event. We have a Mayor's Youth Advisory Board member, Ethan Myers, to ask the first question, and Representative Malmstrom, we will have you respond first. And
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ethan.
The Beaverton School District has the highest number of enrolled students who are facing homelessness in the entire state. If elected, what are you planning to do to combat this issue?
Okay, there are many aspects of this problem of school kids not achieving and not being able to do so because they are homeless. You need to look at what are their needs first and foremost. Housing is a big thing. We'll be proud to continue to work for housing reforms. I'm supporting the bond measure, supporting the Measure 102 and the implementations thereof. Children need to have more access to mental health concerns in their schools. They need to be able to continue to hire wonderful, good teachers. We need to support those teachers in the education plans that they have. And most of all, it takes money. And so I fought long and hard in the legislature to continue to raise up. We raised a lot more money this year for schools. It's still not enough, but we need to continue to do that, and that means, revenue reform.
Okay, Brian, same question. You have up to 1 minute.
Sure. It really comes from two sides of a problem. We need to be able to make sure we have affordable housing, and then we need to make sure that we have wages that make sense to make the housing affordable. So it's taking on both sides when we look at what a family needs to make sure they have the family structure to be able to support the student in school. That family, the family unit, the ability to go home to a safe, secure place where you can do your homework, where you're not worried about what's going to be on the table. So it's both, homelessness starts from both sides of that equation. So one side we are looking at with the bond measure to be able to create some more affordable housing. But the other side is to make sure that our businesses, our corporations, sponsor and work together to be able to raise the wages so this way people can afford affordable housing.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thanks for both of those responses, and thank you, Ethan. So now let's move to questions from our audience. The order for this question is Brian Pearson first, followed by Representative Malmstrom. We'll alternate the order for each ensuing question. Okay, so one from the audience here. I'm worried about our tremendous PERS debt. Do you have an approach or plan for getting us to PERS solvency?
Absolutely. The PERS is one of the biggest concerns, obviously, for the state and draws on the state budget. For me, when you look at PERS, step one, I always like to look at things of what we can do now, what can do next, and then later. Now, let's take the legislators and the judges out of PERS. The people that are making the decisions, let's take them out of the system. Next, let's look at the people that are in the system. We have the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. There's some opportunities that I think we need to take a look at for those that grew their pensions in the last years of employment. Maybe that's something we can look at to be able to bring some money back into our coffers. Then take a look at a real 401k system for all employees. To make, for example, with teachers, to decide if you want to go into a real 401k and forego PERS, which would then have a lower requirement on the state later, we can raise salaries today. So looking at it from a means to be able to address how we make the laws, who's in it that can be potentially some of those areas reduced, and then make it in a way that we can actually increase our salaries for our teachers.
Okay, thank you. Representative Malmstrom?
The PERS, ooh, now I got too much. PERS reform is certainly something that we all need to continue to keep an eye out for creative new ways. But we have tried to do things that reduced the cost because Tier 1 people have been promised a pension, and the courts have upheld that decision that we will not renege on those people. We also need to have teachers that will want to work in our schools. We can't build a better school system if we don't get and recruit the best teachers. And to do that, we need to have good salaries and promote that. But we can't pay good salaries without, having some sort of way to look at, getting more revenue, because we can't, our PERS system is one of the better pension systems in the country. It's not a problem with the pension, it's a promise that was made long ago we can't keep up with. So again, part of it's revenue thing and protecting those workers that have already paid into the system.
Okay, thank you. Representative Malmstrom, you have the first rights to the next question, and that is, what role does the state legislature have in addressing the issue of affordable housing and homelessness? And what would you do to ensure that all of our residents, regardless of income, have a home?
Well, I would look first of all to trying to keep people that are, and at great risk of losing their houses from doing such things. And one of those things is to make sure that people don't get no-cause evictions. That was something we came within basically one vote of in the legislature. That was a real big fight. I think things have changed with some of the people in the legislature. I'm hopeful that will happen. We need to look at more creative solutions. We cannot just build ourselves out of the housing crisis. We have to look at, other ways to involve people in the housing, community partnerships, which is what this Measure 102 is about. And then ultimately, we need to provide services that help people be able to be housing ready, where that's mental health services, all sorts of social services and case management. So it's a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, great.
To also leverage on Sherry's comments, public-private partnerships for creating the affordable housing to ensure we can get the most bang for our buck out of bond measures, out of what the state does. Some privatization. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure we get the most houses we can possibly create, and at the same time, making sure that we can put the people into the houses with a living wage, with an ability to be able to afford not just where we live, taking care of the children, taking care of your family. So when you look at from the housing perspective, that's really what we have to look at both sides. We can look at how we can afford it through bond measures and through some privatization, but also then once the people are in housing, making sure we're taking care of them so they can thrive in the housing and continue to grow and not go back into the cycle of homelessness.
Okay, thank you. Brian, you're first on this question. What new ideas and solutions do you plan to implement in the coming term if elected?
The biggest thing I would say from bringing it over from my business experiences is the now, next, later, which I mentioned. Really looking at things like, say, a transportation solution, where we need to say, well, we have a problem in Beaverton. What can we do now to alleviate some of these problems? Well, as an example, let's time the lights, work with Bob Terry, work with the city, work with the state to allow more traffic to flow through the city. Next, maybe there's some construction we can do. That maybe take a year that we add a right turn lane so we're not frustrated sitting behind someone at a light and again, we're idling, we're creating more pollution, we're not taking care of the environment, and later then look for the bigger solution that then ultimately takes care of our urban growth. So I'm bringing to the table is that approach to say we need some real solutions to problems now while we then plan and ensure we can solve them next and later.
Representative Malmstrom.
Okay, thank you. Even though this isn't a problem that can be easily solved, and there's many different solutions, one of the biggest problems I see that's facing our state and actually our nation is the opioid crisis. We have people who can't be housed because of their addiction, kids that can't learn in school, people don't have healthy children when they are delivered. It goes on and on and on, what the opioid crisis is doing to us. We need to look at creative solutions. I came into the legislature with an idea of a drug take-back program to get unused, unwanted drugs out. I've come really close before. I've worked with both sides of the aisle. I'm working on a very good bipartisan, bicameral, both sides, everybody coming together to work with the pharmaceutical manufacturers to get this done, because it's the most common way people become addicted is by stealing or getting medicines from somebody else's cabinet. And I think that'll make a big difference on everything from health to housing, et cetera, down the line.
Okay, thank you, Representative Malmstrom. You're up first on this one. Please explain your economic growth strategy for Washington County. How do you grow prosperity here?
Well, I think prosperity comes first and foremost from opportunities, and that includes primarily education. I think we've done things more recently to focus on career and technical education. Not everybody has to go to college, but everybody needs a way to support themselves with a meaningful job. I think that, overall our economy in Washington County is doing good, but it can do better, and education is the key. And to be able to become educated again, you have to have a healthy family structure, and those are the things that I want to focus on, are those things that make a healthier community.
Okay, Ryan?
Yeah. Economic growth is essential for us to have a thriving economy. First and foremost, create laws that support our growth and make sure that we have regulations that support our small businesses. Making sure that we keep money and resources in the hands of the people who are really creating the jobs. Our small businesses are the ones that really are the lifeblood of Washington County. With that, creating a level tax playing field. We've seen too many laws and restrictions. Putting the same type of laws on a company or a business that has 4 or 5 people versus one that has thousands doesn't make sense. I really believe from an economic perspective, keeping the taxes small, driving businesses to come and attract them into Washington County, ensuring that we can have the corporation base that allows us to grow, allows us to have the place where we can create jobs, create the infrastructure, the revenue that allows us to create the Oregon we want it to be.
Representative?
So, responding to what he said, I think that we have a responsibility to grow our small businesses. That is the economic, driver to everything. And those are the opportunities where lots of people maybe haven't been able to get into before. So we want to encourage that. So I think that anything that we can do to make sure that we protect those small businesses and encourage, family-friendly businesses and people that and corporations that give back to the community as well.
All right, thank you both. Now it's time for the candidates to ask their opponent a question. Representative Malmstrom, you get to go first. Ask Brian a question up to 30 seconds, and Brian, you have up to 1 minute to respond, and then we'll flip the order.
Okay, this is pretty straightforward. Considering the nationwide epidemic of gun violence, would you support an assault rifle ban in Oregon?
So, having led a background screening company, I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment and saying that we are, as Americans, have a right to bear arms. The challenge I think we've now approaching is what type of arms can we bear? Assault rifles are a weapon that we look at and say, is it a challenge for us? Is it something that is protected by the Second Amendment or not? The real question is, are we going to be safe, and how are the weapons going to be used and controlled? A ban, to me, is a violation of the Second Amendment and is something that I would not support. We as a country have a responsibility to look at how the weapons are used, where they're controlled, and how we handle them. And to specifically outlaw a type of weapon, I do not believe will be effective, nor I believe is in support of the Constitution as written.
Okay, Brian, now it's your turn to
Sure.
ask Representative Malmstrom a question. And
Sure.
again,
We were just at a recent Washington County Public Affairs Forum, and you said you weren't a big fan of tolls, but you did vote to support House Bill 2017, which allows Oregon, the Transportation Commission, to potentially put a toll on I-5, 205, and even 217. But that bill also had payroll taxes in there that are going to now take the tax on some of our workers. If you're not a fan of tolls and you support workers, why support such a punitive bill?
I think that at this point, there is a lot of unknown about this bill. We, in legislature, passed the bill without dictating that how it was going to be implemented. I believe the communities in those areas, the communities around the I-5 corridor and around 205, that's where they need the input about what they're going to be. 217 is not really being targeted for tolls. They're going to be making those little paths like between Canyon Road and Beaverton Hillsdale Highway to kind of eliminate so many off and ons. So that isn't where when I said I wasn't a big fan, I'm referring to the fact that I don't think that's going to happen here, and I don't think that we should, as a state, dictate to communities what they should do.
all right, thank you both. Now candidates will provide their closing statement in this order. Each of you has 1 minute. Brian, you are up first.
Sure. Thanks again. And a few weeks ago, I met a Beaverton City Councilman. And he looked at me and I introduced myself that I was running for office, and he matter-of-factly said, "You have no chance." That defined me of why I was running for office. Because as Americans, we're ultimately defined by having a chance to be in a state that accepts people without judgment or labels, without getting to know one another. A chance to create communications between parties, bringing out the best in us. A chance to put aside political boundaries and become the state we want it to be. A chance to dream. A chance to live in a safe community. A chance to take action. Maybe on not what's politically correct, but is what we absolutely need to do. A chance to use my experiences in life as a businessman, as a military officer, to be treated and to be respected in a way that we offer mutual trust and respect to all of our citizens. Chance may imply risk, but chance also means opportunity. I'd like the opportunity to serve you, to bring my experiences, to give me a chance to help us fix and become the state we want to be as we go forward. Thank you.
Representative Malmstrom, 1 minute.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time tonight, and thank you to Brian for being here as well. We haven't had any rancor between us. It's been a friendly discussion. I've enjoyed talking with him and working with him. I was born and raised in this area. I raised my family here, and I've had a lifetime of community service, and I'm thoroughly invested in this community. Again, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity I've had to serve you in the Oregon legislature. I believe we've made real progress in the last couple of years, but there's much more to be done. There always will be. I plan to continue to use my nursing skills of listening to people, being compassionate about their needs, and working collaboratively with others to help Oregon move forward. And tonight, I'm asking for your vote to give me the opportunity to work again on some unfinished business. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you both for your participation and service. And you can step down.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
So we had planned to include the race for House District 28 between Representative Jeff Barker and his opponent Lars Hedbor in tonight's forum. However, due to an emergency in Representative Barker's family, we won't be able to do that. Our policy is to feature only contested races where at least 2 candidates are able to attend. If you have any questions about this race, again, this is House District 28, Representative Jeff Barker and opponent Lars Hedbor. We have included contact information for both candidates on the back of the agenda. So now we want to move to the race for State House District 34. We'll hear from candidates Joshua Johnston and Michael No, as well as the incumbent, Representative Ken Helm.
Is this thing on?
All right, gentlemen, you're all seated. Very good, we'll get going. Representative Helm grew up in Oregon, where he developed a deep appreciation for the state's natural resources and diverse communities. He earned a law degree from Willamette University and worked on Metro's land use staff. He went on to build his own successful law practice. In 2014, he was elected to the legislature. He serves as the chair of the House Committee on Energy and Environment. He is also a member of the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Natural Resources and the House Committee on Economic Development and Trade. He served on the Oregon Global Warming Commission and committees related to marijuana legalization and regulation. He supports a healthy and prosperous environment for all Oregonians. Joshua Johnston, a Libertarian candidate for this seat, is a 7-year military intelligence Army veteran with degrees in international economics, information security, and Arabic language. He currently is the Information Security Program Manager for a financial institution. He volunteers his free time to teach data privacy and security. Joshua's primary motivation for entering the current race is dissatisfaction with the status quo of policies and actions taken in Salem. He believes in the rights of the individual and wants to maintain those rights by ensuring power and decision-making stays in the hands of the people, not government. Michael No, a Republican, is the son of first-generation immigrants from Vietnam. After attending public school in Beaverton and Hillsborough, he earned his associate's degree from Portland Community College with a focus on entrepreneurship and business management. In 2003, he started a career in mortgage lending. Later, he managed his family's rental property. In March of this year, he started a career in real estate development. He is concerned that even though Oregon has historically high tax revenues, the state still faces huge budget shortfalls. He says it's time we set aside our differences and start turning our common goals into real solutions. Now is the time for each of the candidates to provide his opening statement. Joshua, you get to go first. 90 seconds, please, and you'll be followed by Michael and then Representative Helm.
How are y'all doing tonight? I don't have a lot of flowery words for you. I'm here for just a couple of very basic things. I believe in our individual rights as citizens. I don't believe that Salem should dictate everything down to us, and further past that, I believe we do need to address this budget shortfalls, and I believe we need better representation of our generation inside of the House and in government positions in general. We've had too long of the same old, and it's time for something different.
Michael's next.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming, number one. Number two, my name is Michael Ngo. I'm here for you. If we're truly to be public servants, we should be seeking out for you, finding out what is broken in our system and bridging the divides. There shouldn't be this partisan politics that breaks us apart. We should unite and find the things that bring the common areas and build those up. So, honestly, you can go and find me. I will be accountable to you. I will give you my contact, and I'm here to serve you should you choose to elect me. Thank you.
Representative Helm.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. How many folks that are here know whether they're from House District 34 or not? Great. Wow. Great turnout. Great turnout. And here, a further question. How many of you either live near or drive through the area near the Nike campus on a daily basis? So the big news in our district is the road improvements are almost done, and we can return to normal soon. I've been on the road for the last couple weeks and all of a sudden noticed that one of the lanes that have been closed is open now, and I was excited to see that on the way over. As the information segment indicated, I've been in the legislature since 2015, and I've been greatly honored to be your representative in Salem. When I was canvassing, I learned very quickly the core values of our district, which are education that matters, that is quality, and that serves our students well, health care for as many people as possible, and again, adequate to their needs, and then a clean and healthy environment. I have worked hard in my capacities and on my committee assignments to do that for you, and I'll continue to do so with your support, and I thank you for your support thus far.
Okay, thank you. Now let's start with the Q&A segment. Our first question comes from Beaverton Arts Commission board member Allison Tivnon. Representative Helm, you get to respond first, and then Joshua, then Michael. Okay, Allison, ask your question, please.
Thank you. In the Portland metropolitan area and regionally, artists and creatives are being displaced. Affordable housing, specifically live-work housing, is becoming more and more scarce. How will you work to protect housing options for the creative class?
That's a great question, and it's a version of the prior affordable housing questions. It's not just folks that are on the edge of homelessness that need affordable housing. And there's a few ways that we can get at this issue. One is to do what we did last session, and that is raise some funds that are specific to providing affordable housing. During the 2018 session, we increased the ability of counties to increase their recording fees for legal documents in order to create a revenue stream specifically for affordable housing. That money hasn't really hit the ground fully yet, but it'll be a continuing and ongoing source of that type of money, and we need to see how well it does. The other thing we can do is to help streamline county services for the providers of housing that are building housing, even market rate housing out there, to make sure that they can get through the processes a little bit quicker, and that lowers their carrying costs, and they can pass those savings on to those who really need it.
Joshua's next.
So I've got two responses to that. One, I think we need to look at more creative zoning options. We're almost strangled by single family homes at this point in time. We have the absolute inability to build up across the county as a whole. And then two, I would look at creative tax revenue streams. You know, we don't need to increase individual income taxes in order to pay for this kind of stuff. There's definitely more creative ways that we can come up with in order to make sure everyone has access to the housing that they require.
So I'm actually somewhat of a creative myself. I have a friend back here, the people on TV, they won't be able to see. His name's Brent. He's helping me do some videography here, and I get your pain. So the thing about it, though, is government shouldn't be given handouts. We should be helping people succeed. So I bet you anything, you are a small business owner. I want to help you succeed. I want to find out why you're not making the money you need to make so you can afford the life that you can. So if I get elected, I'm going to go find you out, and let's work together and figure out what's going on, why you're not able to afford what you need to afford.
All right, thank you, candidates, and thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. Joshua, you go first on this one, then Michael, and then Representative Helm. It's pretty simple. How can we have more affordable housing built for everyone?
All right. So again, I definitely think zoning is something we need to look at overall, without a doubt. Our property taxes are just increasing hand over fist. We have more single-family homes than almost that we can sell at this point in time in the market, and they're increasingly going up in price at this point in time, right? We don't have any creative housing options coming out from any source at this point in time. And then in addition to that, you know, I'm not opposed to affordable housing as it is, but we just need to find creative ways to pay for it. And honestly, putting our cities into debt by letting them issue bonds hand over fist that are almost decreasing value vehicles at this point in time is not a correct answer at this point.
So here's how we help create more housing. We allow and stimulate more competition. So I am in real estate, and so right now Oregon and Washington and California, we have all something called the urban growth boundary. Oregon's the only one we cannot build outside of that. So if Josh over here owns some land outside the urban growth boundary and I came in and I wanted to buy it from him and build it, Oregon wouldn't allow me to do that. So does that make sense? So if I can't buy that land, it's gonna be worth less for him and he can't sell it at the value he needs. So let's look at that. Whatever jurisdiction that's in, shouldn't the people have a say instead of the state? That's how I would look at that. And again, if you got a better idea, I want to hear it.
All right. Representative Helm?
Let me just respond to the idea of whether we bust the urban growth boundary or not. For the last 30, 35 years, we've been managing the urban growth boundary of all the communities in the Portland metro area together as one urban growth boundary. And to facilitate the right amount of expansion of the growth boundary over time, we do an analysis of the demand for various land types within the urban growth boundary in 5-year increments. And then we're able to add land as we need it. This is a very smart and stepwise way to go about providing land for all sorts of housing types and business land types like an industrial and commercial land. We've done it very carefully, we've done it very well. One idea that I think has merit specifically to getting more affordable housing out there is to figure out how to lower the land cost by getting that public part of public-private partnerships into the mix so that local governments can have a bigger part of providing the land available for that affordable housing.
Okay. On this next question, the order of response will be Michael first, Representative Helm, and then Joshua. Again, a pretty simple one coming from our audience. Why should I vote for you instead of your opponents? What sets you apart to make a positive difference?
Honestly, I can't convince you to vote for me. You're gonna have to judge for yourself. I'm not looking to do this, but you know, if you're gonna be someone that entrusts me with this, I want to be held accountable. This is my number, 503-714-5040. that goes directly to me. I guarantee you I will serve with all my being and all my heart to be accountable for you. Because honestly, my job here is if I get elected, I want to be out of office as fast as possible. I want to set it up so we have a foundation to grow something better together.
Representative Helm?
Thank you. And I think the best way to answer that question is to say, you know, the best predictor of the future is to look to the past. And not only have I been very honored to serve House District 34, I have the advantage of having listened to you for 4 years now as you respond to what we're doing in Salem through phone messages, email, and personal contact. And what I've heard from you is that you like the way I'm representing you, by and large. We've had some very difficult issues, and where I sit on the political spectrum and my values in the Democratic Party seem to fit nicely with the majority of the constituents in the district on all sorts of issues. Education, folks seem to be generally in favor of healthy education budgets. I voted for those. They want to provide adequate health care for a lot of people. I voted for those things. And on issues such as reasonable gun control, I followed your lead and asked for more safety measures for guns in the state. So far, so good.
Well, like Representative Helm said, the best predictor of the future is the past. And you can't expect change if you continue to do the same thing that you've been doing. I believe someone said that's the definition of insanity. So we can't move forward by keeping the same people in there year over year over year. We have to have fresh ideas in there. We have to have alternate opinions from alternate generations. We have to have multiple representations in there. I believe a strong house is a house that rotates individuals out as quickly as possible. That's my opinion there. Why you should vote for me is because I represent new ideas and new opportunities and creative solutions for problems that we continue to plague us for year over year inside of Salem.
Thank you. This next question came in online prior to tonight's forum. And the order of response here will be Representative Helm, followed by Joshua, then Michael. Would you support legislation to ban assault weapons sales in Oregon, and why or why not?
Just this last week, I was invited to attend a forum sponsored by Moms Demand Action. And I've been endorsed by them. And that's because, while at the same time I respect Second Amendment rights, I also feel that they are adequately protected as they are now. That doesn't mean that we are foreclosed from common sense safety regulations that apply to guns. As to assault rifles, I think the real issue is, are we dealing with military-grade weapons, or are we not? And if a weapon is designed and capable of killing dozens of people with just a dozen rounds in close proximity, I think that's a military-grade weapon, and we don't need it in the mix of our civilian population. So depending on all the details around that proposal, I would be likely to support it.
All right, on the other end of the spectrum, I was not endorsed by the mothers group. I believe shall not be infringed is clearly written inside of the Constitution and the highest law of our land. And I also believe that assault weapons is one of the biggest strawman arguments of our time, because it's a very subjective definition into what you're going to call an assault weapon. Representative Helm said something can kill multiple people within a short amount of time. And what's that mean? I mean, you have Chinese stabbings that go across and multiple people are injured or killed within a short amount of time as a knife, an assault weapon. What constitutes that? So I would not support any ban that didn't make any sense with any sort of legislation.
Michael?
So first and foremost, I don't own a gun. I've never shot a gun, but I'm going to say this. My family is from Vietnam, and over there, you would get arrested if you had a gun. So does that make sense to take guns away from our citizens if government gets too big? So when I hear the question is, do you want to ban assault weapons? The real question I'm hearing is, how can we keep them out of hands of people who shouldn't have them? So that's my approach there.
Okay, next question and order of response here is Joshua, followed by Michael, and then Representative Helm. Given that Oregon has one of the lowest graduation rates in the country, which has been tied to a funding shortfall, what creative and new funding streams are you looking at to fund Oregon schools?
So education is definitely an interesting topic here in Oregon. I don't know if everyone looked at the last budget breakdown, but Medicare and Paras made up 53% of the last budget that they passed, with education only being 17%. So is the problem really that we need to find new tax revenue streams, or is it that we need to really take a look at the budget as it is and as written and find ways to support our future generations without taking money out of their pockets and putting it in the hands of the, honestly, generations that got to write that legislation?
Actually, on coupling on Joshua, so here's the thing. Is more money going to always solve all of our problems? Let's take a gambler. If he's got a horrible money issue and you throw more money at it because he can't manage his bills, is that going to solve the problem? And I'm not saying we shouldn't have more money for our schools. We definitely should look at that. But let's look at how it's being spent. If I go out there right now as a constituent, I don't know how it's being spent right now. Let's figure that out together. From there, hold people accountable.
So in Oregon, we're supposed to adequately fund education, and if we can't, we have to explain why we don't. And the Oregon Department of Education is in charge of producing that report to the legislature every couple of years. And every year that I've been in the legislature, the report has come back saying we're about $1.5 to $2 billion short to provide an adequate educational model, not a Cadillac version, an adequate version. So yes, we do have a funding shortfall. This past interim, the Speaker and the Senate President asked a group of legislators to tour the state under the auspices of the Student Success Committee, listen to communities and students and parents about what they thought were the problems with education, and come back to us and tell us what to do about it. I think that we are looking at some revenue-raising measures coming up in 2019. I suspect it will be some form of broad tax that is a low tax that is spread evenly over the entire population. Shouldn't affect the economy, but will raise enough money for education.
Thank you. Okay, here's our last question, and the order of response here will be Michael first, followed by Representative Helm, and then Joshua. And this question comes from our live audience. Will you vote for increased photo radar for cities and counties?
I'd have to understand why you would want that in the first place. Because here's the deal. We got traffic issues, but yet we want to ask and spend more money to put more cameras in. So I'd like to figure out from the law enforcement and from all the community members why we would want that. Because, you know, unless it's actually going to do something for us and make the roads safer, and I'm willing to look at it, but I can't just straight up say no or yes. I'd like to figure out why, because we already have a money issue right now, or a budget issue.
Representative Helm?
Yeah, we recently passed legislation that allowed some photo radars to be used to issue tickets that were related to folks speeding through intersections. And so not the typical type of just simply breaking the speed limit in a school zone, for example. And the reason that that caught our attention is we got information indicating that that scenario is causing additional automobile accidents and more severe injuries. So that is a use of photo radar that is one that is in the mode of increased public safety. Those types of uses of photo radar, I think, are warranted. As you all know, in Beaverton, we already have been living with photoradar for a long time. And I think we've learned to live with it. I don't think it has been abused by the city in any way. And I think it's effective at keeping people's minds on their speedometer.
So Representative Helm, if I understood what you just said correctly, the use of photo radars has increased traffic accidents.
No.
Then I completely misunderstood what you said. But there is a lot of evidence to support that the use of photo radars does increase traffic accidents, and that is nationwide. In addition to that, there's also a large privacy issues with these organizations. The use of photo radars, they gather all of your license plate information in order to issue you these tickets. What do they do with that information afterwards? Do they discard it, or do they just hold on to it, and do they sell it to insurance companies? What happens to that information afterwards? These photo radar companies are not held accountable by the state for what they do with your information afterwards. Very rarely is that looked at because it's a new technology that is not fully vetted.
Okay, that concludes our questions and answers. Now it's time for the candidates to ask one of their opponents a question. Now, Joshua, you get to go first. You can ask a question up to 30 seconds in length. Whoever responds has 1 minute to reply.
Man, I hate going first. So, of course, Representative Helm, you've spoken a lot about increasing revenue streams tonight and finding different ways to do that. What kind of measures would you pass, and what kind of taxes would you like to see put on the people of this district in order to increase revenue funds?
Thanks. I think it's a really relevant question right now. After the defeat of Measure 97, the legislature took our Legislative Revenue Office took a hard look at other states' programs for raising significant revenue in a controllable way. And they looked in particular at states that had instituted a business operations type of tax that was extremely low, under 1% of gross revenues. That analysis impressed me, I'll tell you. I don't know exactly what I would vote for yet because we'd have to work out lots of details, but the principle that I mentioned before of a broad-based tax that is quite low, that everyone can pitch in on a little bit is attractive to me, and I would expect that we're going to have something like that in the 2019 session as a proposal.
Okay, Representative Helm, it's your turn. You can ask an opponent a 30-second question, up to 30 seconds if you need it, and the respondent answers in 1 minute.
Can I have 2 short questions? I think I'll do that. These are easy to ask. For Michael, I think you owe it to the audience to let them know whether you're going to align yourself with President Trump as a Republican. And for Joshua, if elected, I always ask Libertarian candidates, which party would you caucus with if elected?
So I look at results and I don't look at words, and yeah. President Trump is sometimes contentious, but if he, right now, look at our economy. It's doing better than what it was. Let's look at how we're looked at the world. I know we're in a better standing. So as far as am I going to fully align with the guy, I got to see what he does. But what I will say is what's that have to do with Oregon? I want to look at every one of you and figure out how can we make you more successful. I'm going to align with Oregonians. That's the question that you should be asking me.
So I'm not a good politician, guys. I'll let you know ahead of time. When it comes to stuff like party caucuses, I would be much more of a issues-based voter and support issues as they come across rather than trying to find a party to support. I don't really believe in party systems necessarily, and if that's something we can move away from, I would be much happier for it.
All right, thank you. Michael, please ask one of your opponents a question, and if I could, just because of time constraints, just direct it at one of your opponents.
Representative Helm, so I actually want to see you do a pretty good job. I'd rather not be here right now, but I got to ask you, you had proposed something called cap and trade, and so what that would do is it looks like it would require more people to figure out how to tax people on pollution. Don't get me wrong. I think everyone here wants to breathe clean air and drink clean water, but how would we pay for that and who would manage it?
I wish I had about 15 minutes to cover that. I am a strong advocate of pricing carbon. I've worked hard on it for the last 2.5 years, and in detail. And I happen to be a long-range thinker, and apologize to you if that doesn't fit your view. But I'm a land use attorney, and I've operated under our state land use laws for my entire career that were developed 40 years ago, and in my opinion, very far-sighted. And so when I look at the massive impacts that we are experiencing right now from climate change, I look ahead to the next 40 years and I think to myself, I can't sit by and do business as usual. So yes, I have been looking with colleagues at a carbon pricing system. It's not a carbon tax, it is a trading system, and it would put a price on all activities that produce greenhouse gases and try to effect change through pricing it. And if you'd like to talk with me more about that, please find a way to contact my office. I'd be more than happy to talk with you about it.
Great, great. Thank you. So now it's time for closing remarks. Representative Helm, please go first, followed by Michael and Joshua. Each of you has 1 minute.
Again, thank you for being here, and I want to reiterate what a great honor it's been to serve folks living in House District 34. We have similar values, and I've appreciated your insights about how you want me to represent you in Salem. I hope to do that again in 2019 and 2020. We have big issues in front of us. That last issue that we talked about, how we attack climate change in the state, is a big one. It's coming to the session in 2019. And I hope to work with you toward a solution that everybody feels at least comfortable with, if not 100% in favor of. The other issue we've also talked about tonight, and I'm confident that it'll be center stage, and that is how do we create a revenue stream that both protects the economy and adequately funds all of our education needs so that our kids are well educated in this state. Thanks.
Michael?
So, thank you, number one, for taking the time to be here and listen to what we have to say. As far as why you should vote for me, you got to answer that yourself. What I know, though, is our kids are our future, and it pains me to see that kids are being neglected. When I heard that question about these kids, like they're coming from homeless homes or like homelessness, they're suffering homelessness, let's figure out what's going on there. So right now, I want to look at, let's get back to the basics. Let's bridge the divide. It's not between blue versus red versus blue. This is about red, white, and blue. Let's work together and figure out where are the common areas we can build and make a better community.
Joshua?
Let's not forget about yellow, right? Libertarians. All right, guys. Like I said before, I'm not a great politician. I'm up here because I believe there's a lot of stuff that can be changed inside of our system, and I believe that if we continue to move forward with the status quo as it has been, and that's not, I'm not trying to disparage anyone who's done any job at this point in time so far. A lot of people have a lot of good ideas, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes, there's difficulties around it. But that being said, we've seen, if you want to vote for the status quo, you have that available to you between both parties. Otherwise, there is a third option that you have available to you, and you can get new, fresh ideas this way and find new, creative ways that don't involve removing power from the individuals, that do involve keeping power in the hands of the individual voter. And that's what a vote for the Libertarian Party would represent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for your participation, for your service. All right, we'll move on to the next segment. Two candidates are running for the position to become the next chair of the Washington County Board of Commissioners, and both, I'm happy to say, are here tonight. Catherine Harrington and Commissioner Bob Terry. We'll let them get seated and we'll get underway momentarily. Okay. Washington County has been Catherine Harrington's home by choice for almost 30 years. For the last 10 years, she has served as a Metro Councilor representing the northern and western parts of Washington County. Before entering public service, she enjoyed a 22-year career in the high-tech industry. In Oregon, she led teams developing and marketing new software products, first at Central Point Software and then at Intel in Hillsboro, where she worked for 10 years. Catherine knows that our county is a great place to live and to work. She wants to continue to serve the residents and businesses of Washington County by focusing on balanced transportation options, assistance to small business, and affordable housing solutions. For 20 years, starting in 1996, Bob Terry owned Fisher Farms, a Washington County-based business that employed more than 200 people. He retired from Fisher Farms in 2016, but he still had a lot going on in his life. His extensive community and public record includes service as chair of the Hillsboro Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, founder of the Oregon International Air Show, and many other affiliations. He served on the Washington County Budget Committee for 12 years. In 2010, he was elected commissioner for Washington County District 4. Now he wants to chair the commission. He says his priorities would be to address traffic congestion and road maintenance, support businesses, improve access to mental health resources, and create lasting solutions to the housing issue. So now it's time for opening statements. We'll go in this order. Each candidate has 90 seconds. Catherine, you're up first.
Thank you. Growing up in a military family, I lived all over the country, from rural to suburban communities. Then, nearly 30 years ago, high-tech jobs brought me and my husband to Washington County. There are few places where physical beauty meets business successes, where cutting-edge tech firms bump elbows with historic family farms and nurseries. Washington County is one of these places. Having worked for both large-scale and small-scale companies, tech firms, I had the opportunity to experience the challenges and opportunities that companies face. But with that, more importantly, I saw how working families would succeed and struggle as companies would boom and bust. Seeing that is why, in 2004, I chose to change careers. I wanted to give back to the community that's given me so much, Washington County. The growth of industry has brought so many opportunities to our county, but with that, we've seen challenges: increasing traffic congestion, skyrocketing home and rental prices, and strains on our public services. I've had the honor of working for you for over a decade now, and I'd love to have the opportunity to continue doing so. Thank you.
Commissioner Terry.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight and learning about your government and what your government future looks like. It's very important that we all participate in our government, and I believe that all my life. My name is Bob Terry, and I was raised in Missouri, and I came here 30 years ago now. I am a veteran of the U.S. Naval Air. I served aboard a USS America aircraft carrier. Proudly served my country and proudly served you at that time. As a District 4 Commissioner, I have worked on and for the ITS system. It's an intelligent traffic signaling system which will control all the stoplights and coordinate them throughout the county. It's a very big issue, and it's one that's very important to all of us, as congestion seems to be the #1 issue as we knock on doors. I also want to be chair because we need someone with experience, and someone who will keep Washington County first as this county provides more dollars to the state coffers than any other county in the state. I want to see us continue to do that. We also have only a 3.1 unemployment in this state. We succumbed to 3.7 some 2 years ago as the rest of the country was just coming out of the recession. That's because we've always ran your county as a business. I want to see us continue to run this county as a business. I have a lot of experience in business. I run companies with as many as 11,000 employees, 2 manufacturing facilities, 6 distribution centers, and over 1,800 dealers. It takes a lot to run a business and manage a budget of that size. I'm up to that job, have done it here in the county for 20 years now. Your county currently has no debt, no general obligation debt on its books. I want to see it stay that way. The priorities for me in this county are to keep Washington County first by keeping the county comfortable in our environment and what we're doing.
Commissioner, I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
All right.
The time does fly.
It does, it does. So now it's time for the Q&A, and you'll have plenty of time to talk. Our first question comes from Lisa Stiller, Chair of the Washington County Social Service Funding Committee. Lisa? Catherine, we will have you respond first to this question, then Commissioner Terry.
So as Washington County population continues to grow, and an increasing number of residents continue to struggle with basic needs, how will you increase access to and funding for social services for Washington County residents?
Thank you for that question. This is one of the reasons why I've chosen to run for this open position. I believe that the next county board will need to shift our priorities a bit. We've had a very conservative majority for the last 28 years that I've lived here, and with that, they've practiced a very harsh philosophy of individual responsibility. That means if any of us have any difficulty in our lives, it must be the result of a bad decision you've made recently or earlier in your lives. That's leaving too many people behind, especially our students who are finding themselves homeless or experiencing housing instability and other needs. I don't believe we can turn a blind eye any longer to the needs that you have in our community. It's why I'm working hard to support working families throughout Washington County, and I would be honored to serve you as chair. Thank you.
Well, could you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. I'm sorry.
Lisa's right there.
The question.
Just a second. Yes. The question, please. Yeah.
Okay, as Washington County population continues to grow and an increasing number of residents struggle with basic needs, how will you increase access to and funding for social services for Washington County residents?
Washington County has done a very good job of that. We've been growing for 30 years that I've been here, and in those 30 years we've continued to manage the county very well, and I don't see any reason why we shouldn't continue to manage it into the future with the growth and the changes both in the young people coming in and the young people growing up and the senior citizens that are here. Could it be better? Yes. We can always do better, and that's my goal, is to strive to do better and to change things as those changes are necessary to be. Well, my opponent, Metro Councilor Harrington, talks about schools. The county, by law, cannot do anything with schools. We do cooperate with the schools, we work with the schools on school planning, and I see no reason why we shouldn't continue to do that. It's a very important part. Our youth are very important to this county, and I support those youth, and we want to continue to do that. I've worked with all the nonprofits in this county because nonprofits are a very strong backbone of the county because we depend on them to do the things that they do best, and that's volunteer and help our county grow. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for questions from the audience. Each candidate may respond for up to 1 minute, and we'll alternate the order on this. First question, Commissioner Terry, you go first, followed by Catherine. The Diversity Advisory Board, the Human Rights Advisory Commission of Beaverton, and the Human Rights Council in Washington County just reaffirmed their commitment to sanctuary city and welcoming. What's your position on this issue and why?
Well, I think the state has the issue, not the county nor the cities. This is a sanctuary state, and the state has done very well with that. I think the county has done very well in working with it. We have a very strict rule as to how we deal with the sanctuary status of our county. The county has not taken a position on being a sanctuary county because our position has been, by the majority of our board, that the state has already declared it, therefore it's not necessary for us to declare it. We work well with our sheriff in managing the sanctuary status of the state. We stay within the laws that we can, but one thing we all have to remember, those of us who are in public office have taken a oath of office to uphold our U.S. Constitution and the laws of our government, both federal, state, and city and county. That makes it very difficult for us in that position. So we have done a good job in walking that line and protecting our citizens and those who are here that may not be a citizen. I totally personally support that. And we need to help those kids, particularly the kids who are the kids here not by their choice.
Thank you. Catherine?
I hope you will join me in voting no against Measure 105. I really value the fact that we have a sanctuary law here in the state of Oregon, but I also know that it's important to many, many residents of our community that Washington County pass its own sanctuary measure. While your independently elected sheriff is doing a fine job, that is not the extent of county government. I live here in Beaverton. I really appreciate that the City Council of Beaverton has declared the city a sanctuary city, and going beyond that has an incredible array of programs that help reinforce the fact that Beaverton is a welcoming city. Washington County is responsible for the urban unincorporated areas, and what does it say to all of the 200,000 plus people in those areas that we have not passed a county sanctuary resolution? I do support it.
Thank you. Next question, Catherine, you'll be up first on this one. How do you propose to provide more resources for the county's uninsured or underinsured population who have few resources in the county for health care?
Yes, healthcare is very important, and access to healthcare services. So I believe in healthcare for all. I really appreciate the way that the Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Foundation and other care providers have helped to implement our affordable care for all here in our state. I worked hard, as well as many other volunteers, to support Measure 101 that was on the ballot and approved by you in January. Washington County, I think, this is one of the areas where the county health folks, we have great staff working in Washington County, but what they need is more help and resources by the leadership of the county board to be more effective in serving more of you, people in need in our community. You are people, and time is passing in your lives. We need to make improvements now for you.
Commissioner Terry?
Yes, thank you for that's a great question because, you know, as I had said earlier, even though we may be able to improve things and do things better, your county has been a leader in the state in what we do in the way of health care for the county. We were one of the very largest donors and supporters to Virginia Garcia Clinic and its new facility right here in Beaverton. We supported that wholeheartedly and came back and finished it off when they needed a little bit more to get the job done. We did it. We support it. We do a great job in health care, and we have a Health and Human Services Department that would hear some of the comments that are being said about their services would be very, very disappointed. We created that, and I was a very strong supporter and leader in creating the Hawthorne Farms Clinic, which is a place for the police of your city and the deputies of the county to take people they pick up on the road or on the streets who have mental health issues or who are ill for whatever reason. They go there and they get free clinic services. In addition, we work with all of our partners in the county for health care. I don't know anybody in this county and there is no reason for anybody in this county not to get health care because it is available through the county and through our private services and those who are in the nonprofit business who support with the county. Thank you very much.
Okay, next question. This one from our live audience in this room. A lot of the challenges we face can only be effectively addressed on the state, regional, or national level. What's the one area you think county government can have the biggest impact, and what would you like to do in that area? What's the one area you think county government can have the biggest impact, and what would you like to do in that area?
Myself?
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Terry, yes, you are up first.
Yes, I think our county works very well with all levels of our current government, and I want to see us continue to do that. So when you say the national basis, non-local basis, we're there. We are a leader in this state, and the one area I want to see us do better in is as I knock on thousands of doors on this campaign, I find that the first question 90% of the time is congestion. And I think we can do something for congestion, and your county is doing it with the intelligent traffic signaling system that will coordinate every stoplight in this county. We're working on it. It works well. I had an opportunity to test it. I went from my home up on Peaks View on top of Bald Peak Road on Bald Peak to Washington Square in 17 minutes, hitting every light green. That's the goal of this county. You won't need radar at stoplights and stop signs along the road with a system like that, because if you go too fast, you get a red light at the next intersection. So we are doing a lot for congestion. That way we can do a lot more. We need a lot more, but our biggest problem in congestion is ingress and egress out of the county.
Catherine?
While transportation and supporting small companies here are very important, I think one of the things that will affect your life more is if the county does a better job engaging with you. As I have canvassed thousands of doors over the last year and had great conversations with people on the doorstep, I have heard loud and clear that so few people know what is it that county government does. Well, basically, you don't know what you don't have because you haven't been given the opportunity to know what county government can and, more importantly, should be doing with you. I'm endorsed by county commissioners here in Washington County, Multnomah County, and Clackamas County because they need a much better partner. They need a chair who is collaborative and other commissioners on the board who are equally as collaborative. I want to make sure that the county board is seeking your input and doing a much better job of serving you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move to the next question, and Catherine, you'll be up first on this one, followed by Commissioner Terry. How are we going to have affordable housing for our seniors who are on fixed retirement income with little ability to earn more? Rents and real estate taxes are increasing at a faster rate than our income.
I hope you will join me in supporting Measure 102 and Measure 26-199. The private market is not providing housing for people on fixed incomes, seniors, folks who are living with disabilities, others throughout our community, preschool teachers, lower wage workers, people who are working full-time but who are still struggling. The private market is not interested in providing stable housing for folks making 0 to 30% of area median income, or frankly, anyone making $60,000 or less a year. We need to support more affordable housing within all of our communities. That is not a problem that is unique to our state or our area. More funding is needed. You have a very modest proposal before you on this November ballot, and I hope you will take a look at it and support it. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Well, I hate to disappoint you all. If you believe that, I have a bridge I want to sell you. Because Measure 26-199 is not inexpensive and it's not affordable. And it does not resolve the affordable housing project as nearly as well as what your county is currently doing. Your county right now has 300 units. That is more than the Metro is going to require us to have under this bond measure of $652 million that you have to pay for. And you pay for that at somewhere in the range of $60 to $80, I've heard both from Metro, on per $1,000 of your house evaluation. I encourage all of you to go home and look at what your assessed evaluation of your homes are, and you will find out how much more this thing is actually going to cost you. The other thing the bond measure does not provide for us is the wraparound services that your county currently does, and that's the mental health issues, that's all the health and human services, the library services, and everything else that we continue to provide for you. That will not come with Measure 26-199. Thank you.
Okay, next question, and this one is first for Commissioner Terry. How do you intend to manage our growth in population as it strains healthcare, education, and transportation infrastructure?
Well, first of all, the county is not responsible for the maintaining of education. We do work well with the school districts in our county, and when we can, we've even illegally, and I say illegally because the state law does not allow us to give money to the school districts, but on the gain share, we did provide $11 million to the school districts. As to the growth of the county, we are currently receiving between 28 and 32 people per day, new people into the county. We have been doing that now consistently for over 20 years. The county has maintained itself well, and there's no reason why we shouldn't continue to do that and improve on what we have done in the past. If you look at your road structures in this county, you would agree that it is the best road system that there is in the state, even though the congestion is what it is. That is not because of the county, it's because of the lack of a way of in and out of our county. But we have done a good job in maintaining our roads, and as far as the housing goes, affordable housing can be collected. What the county is currently doing through public and private partnerships, we are maintaining more new homes than the new bill, the Metro bill will do. Thank you.
So for all three of those areas, healthcare, education, and transportation infrastructure, Washington County can and should work better with all of our partners throughout our region as well as our state. It's one reason why I am endorsed by so many elected officials throughout our area, from state legislators to a vast array of mayors here in Washington County, plus others, school board members, park district board members, because I have a track record of being collaborative, of working with others so that we can look at different solutions to the needs that you have. I don't turn a blind eye. My agenda is a community-based agenda. I am known for listening to folks throughout our community and working to seek solutions that will better your life. I'm committed to continue doing that as your next chair. Thank you.
Well, I hope you're enjoying your rhetoric tonight because it's political rhetoric that you're hearing. I am telling you right now, your county does not need to be fixed. If you enjoy where you're living and how you're living, you're in the right county. If you're not, I encourage you to go to the counties surrounding us, and you will want to come back to Washington County, as many have. Right now, there's a trove of people coming into Washington County from Portland because they want to come to a better place to live where the taxes are lower and is well managed. I believe in running our county as a business, and we have been running it as a business, so I don't want to fix something that is not broken. We provide all the services that my opponent has talked about, and we do a very good job of it. If you look around your neighborhood, you will find that your neighborhood is content. A national survey showed that Washington County was 92% happy in this county in a national survey. And then there was headlines in the news media that we were the happiest county in the nation, and I believe we are. So let's not ruin what is working well and try to fix something that isn't broken.
Okay, next question, and Commissioner Terry, you'll respond first on this one. And this comes from our live audience. What is your position regarding funding for the county's public libraries? Do you believe that it's adequate, it's too much, or should it be increased?
Well, my position is for funding the county public libraries is currently what we are doing. It's working very well. Our libraries continue to grow. We continue to add libraries. We've added 2 new libraries in the last 4 years, and we're getting ready to add a 3rd one down in Cornelius. And so we just finished adding one out in Banks, and I think we'll be doing more out in Banks. So I like our public library system. I think it continues to upgrade itself. It's getting filled with more and more electronic equipment and more electronic. And if you go to the library today, you find fewer books and more electronics. People go there and spend hours there working on their PCs or the county-provided PCs in the libraries. I like our library system. I want to see our library system to continue to grow and flourish. We provide annual funding for that, and then there is also a funding through a bond measure that is funded by a tax to fund those libraries and make sure they stay current and stay up to date. I like the system, and I want to continue it. Thank you.
So let's get clear on facts. You voters have voted to approve a Washington County levy for libraries, not a general obligation bond. So the library buildings, for the most part, are owned by the cities, and in a few locations in urban unincorporated areas, those libraries are supported through volunteers and nonprofits that handle those libraries. The funds that you provide through the levy go towards common staffing levels, base staffing levels, as well as common equipment. So Washington County helps support the county-wide catalog. All of our cities share their materials, but all of the libraries own those materials. And for example, cities are putting in much more money in order to ensure that there are current books and movies and other resources. Thank you.
Boy, we've kind of run out of time for questions. I have a ton of them that I could continue to ask, and I'm sure the audience would hang around too, but unfortunately we do need to stop there with that particular segment. Now it's time for the candidates to ask their opponent a question. So Commissioner Terry, you get to go first. You ask Catherine a question. You have up to 30 seconds to ask that question, and Catherine, you have 1 minute to respond.
Metro Councilor Harrington, during your time at Metro, based on the 07-08 budget and the 17-18 budget, revenue increased by $117 million, while expenses increased by $173 million. The total resources and requirements for Metro went from $486 million in 07-08 to $646 million in 17-18, an increase of $160 million, and an increase of over 100 positions. Washington County prides itself on running a tight budget, maintaining vital county positions. Your record shows you're a big government, big spending, and how do you plan to lead Washington County at the rate you supported while maintaining a balanced budget?
So ladies and gentlemen, I believe in facts. You voters have approved multiple tax measures, such as the zoo bond in 2008, as well as 2 Parks and Natural Areas levy, and that was on top of the 2006 capital bond measure that you supported for natural areas and parks. So the budget increases have, for the most part, followed your instructions, your approval. The other increases to Metro's budget have come about because of revenue increases from the excise tax, much of which comes through garbage fees to support the planning resources, as well as through enterprise revenue. So these revenues and expenses are not because of the Metro Council levying any new taxes. We have followed through on work we're required to do, plus work that you have asked us to do.
Okay, Catherine, now it's your turn to ask Commissioner Terry a question.
Thank you. Mr. Terry, I've heard you talk about how you don't think things should change in Washington County, even going so far as to claim my suggestions to better our communities hurt your feelings. What would you say to those who are alarmed by the traffic increase, or to seniors who are displaced by housing instability caused by the lack of affordable housing in our community?
I'm sorry I have to laugh at that because I haven't complained one bit about your comments, but I will say that you do make funny comments because they're not true and they're not factual. The problem is that we have managed our traffic in this county. If you go to other counties, and right here in the metropolitan area, you will find them that they are much worse. We have maintained a flow and a good road system in this county. The only reason we haven't improved our flow and eliminated the congestion is because the limitations by Metro and helping us gain rural access to roads to exit our county. There's only 4 roads that go in and out of this county, and 2 of them at each end of two of the roads. So we need to work on that congestion a whole lot. As far as senior citizens, we have worked well for senior citizens. We have worked with the TriMet system in order to provide new, which is coming online. Some of it's already here, some of it's coming online in the next year, to provide more transportation for senior citizens, the handicap around the community in the metropolitan area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to the closing statements, and Commissioner Terry, you go first.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Closing statement, please. 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Well, yes, you know, we've heard the rhetoric tonight from my opponent, and it's the same old Metro talk, spin, spin, spin. You heard the answer to my question. The answer was, it didn't answer my question of why everything they did was over budget and overspent. So I want to tell you, we need to continue to watch our budgeting, because every time we don't budget right and every time we overspend, you have to pay for it. It's not fair to you. Your county runs well, and yes, I'm saying don't fix something that isn't broken, but I am saying that we can do better and we continue to change as change dictates and we need. That comes from good management. My opponent talks about how many people she's been endorsed by. I've been endorsed by most of the mayors in the county. I've been endorsed by the Chamber of Commerce's, and I have been endorsed by others around the state. So I'm telling you, I want to be your leader. I love this county. I've worked hard for this county for 30 years, because even when I was not on the board, I worked for the county, and I started several new administrative positions in this county. Thank you.
It's been an honor to work for you for over 11 years now, reinvesting in downtowns and small businesses to create jobs and to shape growth in Washington County in a manner that serves our way of life, bringing transportation solutions of different types throughout our community to reduce congestion and carbon pollution and to make it safe for your kids to get around. I've also worked to preserve the incredible farm and forest land that surround our communities and contributes to our economy. I believe the next chair of the Washington County Board will need to shape the opportunities for the benefit of all, but navigate our challenges so that no one is left behind. I'm Catherine Harrington. I'm ready to guide Washington County forward, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, that concludes this segment. Thank you both for your service and commitment. I hope so. We'll move it along best we can. Okay, last on our agenda tonight is the Metro Housing Bond Measure 26-199. This measure authorizes Metro to issue $652.8 million in general obligation bonds to provide affordable housing for low-income families, seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities in the metro area. Tonight we have Beaverton City Councilor Lacey Beatty speaking in support of the measure and Washington County Chair Andy Dyke opposing it. Councilor Beatty is the director of Virginia Garcia's school-based health clinics, overseeing 6 locations. She is active in the community and serves on the board of directors for Home Plate Youth Services. Her background also includes volunteering on the City of Beaverton's Visioning Advisory Committee. She served 5 years active duty in the U.S. Army as a radiology specialist, combat medic for 6 years, and in the 1st Infantry Division in Iraq. Her husband Ian is a full-time infantry officer, and they have a little girl. Councilor Beatty began her service on the Beaverton City Council in 2015, the youngest elected official in the city's history. She successfully lobbied for veterans' issues and supported making Beaverton the state's 8th Purple Heart city. On the City Council, she has been a passionate advocate for affordable housing solutions. Andy Dyke was first elected to the Board of Washington County Commissioners in 1994, representing District 4. He served 4 terms as a commissioner and in 2010 was elected county chair. In that role, he has focused on the county's long-term financial stability, construction of a conference exhibition center at the fairgrounds, and on improving the efficiency of county services. He currently serves on the boards of the Westside Economic Alliance and Washington County Visitors Association. He's also on the Metro Policy Advisory Committee and chairs the Housing Authority of Washington County. Chair Dyke and his wife of 30 years, Patty, have 7 children and 9 grandchildren. He owns a manufacturing business that he started in 1983 near Forest Grove that has 30 employees. He also owns and operates a farm in the Vermont area. So now it's time for opening statements by our panelists. We'll go with Councilor Beatty first. 90 seconds, please.
All right, thanks for having me today. My name is Lacey Beatty, and I'm here to talk about the Yes for Affordable Housing campaign and how, as a community, we can help. Most of us grew up learning about the American dream, that if you went to school and you got a good education, get a good job, you could buy a house and raise your family. We chose to come to Portland, particularly Beaverton, because we thought it was a beautiful place in which we could do that. The reality is the only reason we could afford to own a home in Washington County is because my husband and I both served, and we were able to use our Montgomery GI Bill to purchase our first house, and we didn't have to put 20% down. But times are changing. There's not a lot of people today that have access to a housing program like my husband and I did, and the dream of home ownership is getting further and further away from people in the region. I think it's also a really sad fact that you could work full-time and not afford a 1-bedroom apartment anywhere in the city, anywhere in the county. And if you believe that the county is great, we should be able to house people that work full-time. My little sister, a lot of you probably know her, she's a server at Elmer's. She recently had to move from her apartment off of Walker Road all the way out to Gales Creek because her rent tripled in the 3 years she was there. And the only place she could afford was Gales Creek, and now she has to commute in on Highway 26 every day to work. And if we continue to outsource some of our lowest wage earners in the community, what does that say?
Chair Dyke?
Okay, Lacey did a great job of outlining the problem, and this is not about the problem. We all know that we have an affordability issue in Washington County and across our nation, but this is not the solution. This is the wrong government. Metro does not have a mandate to either provide housing nor to finance housing, nor is this going to resolve the problem. A tax for housing, which would be paid for as a bond over 30 years, only builds about 1,300 units in Washington County. As you heard from some of the candidate debates earlier, we're building housing without raising taxes at a very fast clip. In fact, over the next 2 years, we plan to do starts on about 500 more units. But yet, you will be paying on this bond measure, if you should pass it, for 30 years, and you will only get about 1,300 units in Washington County. But what's even more important than that is the fact that only about 1 out of 10 who are on the waiting list for housing will be able to benefit from this bond measure. The other 90 or the other 9 out of 10 who are on that waiting list get to pay higher taxes or higher rents because of it. And if you are on fixed income, if you're a veteran or disabled, you don't get that increase in your income, yet you're going to see increases in your taxes.
Thank you. So now we're going to hear rebuttals from both sides. Councillor Beatty, let's hear from you first, your rebuttal to what Chair Dyke just said.
Yeah, well, the bond issuance is for 20 years, not for 30 years. I know that can be confusing because that's how long an average mortgage is, but it is for 20 years. I fact-checked that today. And the reality is that the county hasn't opened their pool for people to apply for affordable housing in 2 years. So people can't even get on the list to go. My great-grandmother, who's living in Washington, has been trying to move close to us for 2 years. We keep going to the Housing Authority, and she can't even get on the wait list. And she's on Social Security, which is much like your grandparents out here in the room today. So if we can't even open the wait list, how can we, and we can't build housing fast enough, I don't really know what the solution is.
Chair Dyke, your rebuttal to Councillor Beatty's comments.
The problem is not the problem is not that we don't have enough units. The problem is that there are only so many housing vouchers that come from the federal government, and if you're on that wait list because those housing vouchers are spoken for, there's nothing affordable about this bond measure. This bond measure is to build units, and it does not build them at an affordable rate. It's only after they're subsidized by local government or HUD vouchers are applied to those units that they become affordable.
Okay, now it's time for the Q&A, and the first question comes from the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement and Beaverton's Visioning Advisory Committee. And doing the honors is Ellen Russell, BCCI, and Councillor Beatty, we will have you go first in response to the question.
Hello, I'm Ellen. This is both the Visioning Advisory Committee and the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement value the public engagement process put in place for new initiatives, as you can see. How can we ensure that Metro will involve the residents of the region, leaders in the public and private sector, in determining how to best serve those communities?
That's an important question because I come from the Vision Advisory Committee. That's my service alma mater, so to speak. So what will happen is if we pass this bond as a community, cities are going to have to get together, and counties and housing jurisdictions are going to have to make a plan about how this is going to be implemented. They're going to start in November with a public outreach and strategy where they're going to go out to their community and solicit information. We will have to turn that information back into Metro in a plan that has to be approved by them at the end of the year.
How many tax measures do you vote for that you don't know what it is you're buying? We don't even have the intergovernmental agreements worked out between the local jurisdictions and Metro, and yet we're being asked to approve a bond measure for Metro that gives them $652 million worth of control before we even know what the criteria are that they're going to be applying. So that's one of the big problems here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ellen. And thank you for your responses. Okay, we'll move to the next question. And first respondent, it will be Chair Dyke. Regardless of the outcome of the bond measure, where in the county could new affordable housing be developed?
This is a really tough question, and this is one of the things that should be resolved. The current recommendation for expansion of the urban growth boundary allows for about 9,200 homes to be built. And yet, by Metro's own numbers, we are short about 40,000 units of affordable housing. So we really don't know where they will be built. It will probably have to be within existing neighborhoods, or the way we do it currently is when the county has parcels that are left over from road projects, we work with nonprofits to build affordable housing on those units or those lots.
Am I responding as well? I could think of two great locations, South Hillsborough and South Cooper Mountain. They're two massive expansions happening side by side in two of the county's largest jurisdictions. Right now in South Cooper Mountain, we have no plotted space for affordable housing because the cost, and something Chair Dyke and I actually agree on, STCs are getting in the way of us being able to build in those areas. And if we don't have rapid intervention, we are going to create entire communities in which people can't afford to live in.
Okay. Next question, and Councillor Beatty, you'll go first on this one. If the Metro housing bond fails, how would you specifically like to see the area's housing crisis addressed? If it fails, how would you like to see the area's housing crisis addressed?
Well, I would normally say that I would want the county to take leadership in this, but they've had decades to try to solve affordable housing. I truly believe that cities are the innovation hub of the future, so I think city councilors like me, led by our mayor, Denny Doyle, and other mayors across the region, are going to have to come together and make a plan B. We're already building affordable housing. We're already making it work. We can't build at the pace in which our community needs. I think that we're going to have to go back to the drawing board, but I have hope and faith in our voters are smart. They're going to pass this bond.
Chair Dyke?
The first thing to have affordable housing is to realize that until there is enough housing for everybody, there will always be an upward push on the price of housing. We have to have an adequate buildable land supply. And that, by state law, is a 20-year land supply. I would argue that we have never had a 20-year land supply in the last 15, 20 years, because we have allowed Metro to include land that we knew going into it would never be built on because of topographical constraints. The other thing is that local governments, and this includes our own, I take responsibility for this, we have put too many fees and charges up front on the cost of building. And we've slowed down the building process to where there are carrying costs associated with delays. So those are the big issues.
Okay, Chair Dyke, please respond to this question first. How will Metro ensure that the funds are spent and managed wisely and that the housing units are spread equitably throughout the region so people have access to good schools, parks, and safe neighborhoods? This, of course, assumes if the measure passes.
If the measure passes, then we will have I assume we will have an intergovernmental agreement with Metro on the projects, and Metro will be able to, and they will, tell us which projects are going to be funded and which ones are not. We will have to apply for the money as grants. So we will essentially be under Metro's leadership in how that distribution takes place. My fear is that because Metro wants to have such an aggressive program of people that are at or below 30% median income, that we will create pockets of poverty within these housing projects. And I hope that doesn't happen.
We're not going to create pockets of poverty if we can get cities and communities to build equitably across the region, and that is what Metro is asking us to do. They realize that they're not home builders. That's not what they're chartered to do. That's not even what they're going to do. They're going to trust local jurisdictions and city councils like mine to come forward with a plan about how we're going to do this. They're going to be the oversight, and we're not just held accountable to Metro. We're held accountable to voters.
Next question, Councillor Beatty, please go first on this one. Pretty simple, straightforward. Do you support rent control?
Oh, wow, I don't know if that's a straightforward question for any politician. I think that I think that we need to look at a region about how to make things more accessible. Our issues in Portland don't look like, or in Beaverton don't look like necessarily the rental issues of Portland. And I think there's not a one-size-fits-all response that could answer that. I think it's a community by community decision to talk about how we're going to fix rental property.
I would answer that emphatically no, not in the form that rent control is conceived by most folks. Rent control, to me, though, ought to be that there is an adequate supply of housing for everybody, and that controls the rent. That's rent control. But artificial government-mandated rent that's locked in is essentially taking a private asset that somebody owns and saying, you're not allowed to use it. You may own it, but you can't use it appropriately.
See, Chair Dyke and I are both straightforward.
Kind of a follow-up question. What do you see are the primary systemic causes of the current housing crisis? Why will the bond measure address these or fail to address these? And Chair Dyke, if you would please go first on that question.
Sure. I think Lacey and I agree on at least some of the causes. The causes are lack of planning. The housing crisis was predicted during the middle of the last recession. We were told that we only had about a 6-month supply of housing if that recession should ever turn around. Did we plan for it? No. We said nobody's buying houses right now, so why plan for adequate land? Unfortunately, it takes somewhere between 10 and 15 years for land which comes into the urban growth boundary to actually be built on, and so you always have to have that pipeline going. Part of the other reason that the costs are so high, everybody knows about the cost of wages and materials that have gone up, but we had talked a little bit about the cost that local governments have placed on housing up front, and I think we need to review those. And Mayor Doyle and I have already begun a process with all of the mayors in Washington County to talk about how we can reduce those costs.
I think this is a multi-pronged problem that we have going on here. We're a really attractive county for people to move into, so people are moving in rapidly. We have some really great jobs, but wages aren't keeping up across the region. When my husband and I were looking to buy a house just 4 years ago, we were being outbid by cash buyers at every turn, and there's not a way for the average family in Washington County to pay $300,000 cash for a house. I think a lot of our problems involve SDCs. I think it involves slow government process, and I think this is going to help us solve some of those.
Okay, thank you. I think with I got a couple questions here, and I think I'll ask one of Councilor Beatty and one of Chair Dyke. It's a basic question, Councilor Beatty. What is the expected time in terms of years to pay off the bonds?
20 years.
Pardon me?
20 years.
20 years, okay. And Chair Dyke, is bond measure 26-199 problem or solution-based versus reactionary? This questioner's comment is, my biggest concern is the growing divide between lower and upper classes. And Lacey, if you would like to respond to that one, you're welcome to as well. So is bond measure 26-199 problem or solution-based or just reactionary?
Boy, that's a softball. In my opinion, it's very much reactionary. It's easy for local governments to say, well, we have a problem, the public sees the problem, so let's just ask the public for more money. That's the easy route to take. It's very reactionary. Unfortunately, it has more negative benefit than it does positive benefit, because there are so many who will be paying the higher tax, but simply too few that will benefit from it.
And Councilor Beatty, your response.
It's easy. It's solution-based. So we're talking about housing built for some of our lowest income community members. Developers are not banging down city council doors trying to build housing for this income bracket. It's just not, it's not profitable for them. They're not doing it. There's no subsidy we can provide great enough to ask them to do it. And if we don't, as a community, come together to house this most vulnerable population, who is going to?
All right. I believe that we asked just about all of the questions here. Yeah. Let me ask you this one, both of you, please. And Councilor Beatty, please respond to this one first. One of the systemic issues that leads to homelessness and displacement is the huge increases in housing costs in the area. How can we turn this around, start reducing the cost of housing, for example, stabilizing or lowering your rents? We talked a little bit about that a few minutes ago. Can you expand a little bit more on your thoughts in that area?
So you're asking me how to stabilize housing?
The question is, how can we turn this around, the huge increases in housing costs in the area? Are there ways or methods you believe that we can turn this around, start reducing that cost of housing, stabilizing or lowering rents, making it more affordable for people to live here?
Well, I mean, we have to start somewhere. We can't let perfection be the enemy of progress. And if we go on Chair Dyke's recommendation that this doesn't solve everything, therefore we shouldn't start at all, it's the wrong answer. I mean, we can't keep waiting. We have to start building now. We have to look into neighborhoods that don't have historic low-income housing in it. We can't keep isolating it in particular neighborhoods. And I think the other thing the city just did was pretty unique, was put together money when we build our last affordable housing unit so that place could have a .5 half-time social worker to help people access resources, because it's not just about getting people in housing, it's making sure they can stay in housing, they have the resources to get on food stamps and become stable and eventually exit that housing so somebody else can come in.
Okay.
We did not always have this problem. In fact, during the recession, there was plenty of housing out there. You could buy houses for a song. So it doesn't go back decades, as Ms. Beatty said. However, in order to reverse the situation, just as it was a market-driven problem, it has to be a market-driven solution. Again, there must be housing for everybody who wants one in order for those prices to come down. What we have right now is we have a shortage of housing, and so once you have a shortage of housing, you start getting investors who come in from out of state, buying up projects and immediately jacking up rents. And that starts the whole process spiraling out of control. We have to reverse that process by aggressively creating enough housing so that there's housing for everybody who wants one, and then the prices will stabilize.
All right, very good, very good. And our last question, Councilor Beatty, you go first on this, or excuse me, Chair Dyke. One of the criticisms is that the measure would raise homeowners' taxes about $60 a year. Those are on average, of course. Those already living on the edge will struggle with this. Are there any means built in to mitigate the effect of this on people living on very low incomes?
Well, is $60 a modest tax increase? Well, if you want somebody who's struggling with your housing costs, it's not a modest tax increase. Any tax increase is not a modest tax increase. The proponents of the measure have said that there are options for deferring your taxes, but who wants to own their home and then know that you've got a deferred tax bill that's going to come due at some time in the future? That's not the way to run a government, and I would propose that this is just a bad solution because it puts the burden of this problem on you instead of the burden being on those who it should be on.
Part of the reason the City Council looked towards Metro creating this bond when we were trying to figure out early on if we wanted the county to own it or if Metro to own it was so that we could take this problem across the entire region to make it as affordable as possible for every homeowner within the region. And if we were just to do it by Washington County alone, we couldn't do it this way. So I think by taking a city-by-city regional approach and having everyone in, it is the least amount we can charge for the greatest good.
All right, thank you very much for your responses. Now it's time for closing statements, and we'll go in this order: Chair Dyke, and then Councilor Beatty. You each have 1 minute. Chair Dyke?
Okay, once again, this is a bad solution. It's not a solution at all. In fact, it takes us backwards and makes the problem worse. It's not even neutral. How many of you received your property tax bills today? I know I did. There's several of you out in the audience. You will see that property tax has gone up. It continues to go up. It goes up incrementally. Even though this is only $60 a year for the average homeowner, you will see an incremental increase that continues to drive housing costs and rents up. Please vote no on this measure if you have any compassion for those who are on the edge who are struggling with housing.
This isn't just an economic issue, it's a moral issue. Working hard means you should be able to afford housing in the community that you live in. You shouldn't have to work in one community and live in another and commute across to do it. Compassion means that we're finding housing for 14,000 people. I recognize that it's not the solution for everything, but this is the start we need to go. And if we can pass the constitutional amendment with it, we're gonna house a lot of people together. And cities like ours are gonna take this responsibility very seriously. We're going to include you in the process. We're going to look across our city and decide where we're going to build. And we're going to look and shake under every rug to partner with local governments and other people to make this happen.
Okay. We've reached the end of this segment. I want to thank both Councilor Beatty and Chair Dyke.
Questions of each other.
Pardon me?
We didn't get our questions of each other.
That wasn't in this program. The rebuttals kind of replaced that. We did not have that in the other presentations. So thank you very much for coming tonight and presenting your answers. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of our program. Let's hear it for all the candidates and panelists who spoke tonight. Thanks also to everyone in our live audience and to those viewing on TV, and thanks again to the Beaverton School District for providing this space. Remember, for those in this room, please take a moment to fill out the event survey in your packet and let us know how we did. By providing input, you help us improve similar events in the future. Survey drop boxes are located near the welcome table, or you can hand your questionnaire to a BCCI volunteer. Would those volunteers please raise their hands if they're still in the room? There's 1, 2, there's 3, I see 4. Okay, very good. So, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and be sure to vote. Good night.